It's 3 o'clock.
Good day, good afternoon. This is Africa Online. Africa Online with this week's discussion, and the topic I know is going to be homosexuality. But Reverend Palm will take over from here, and before we move on, Reverend Palm, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Nia Song. Happy Sunday, and happy Sunday to all our viewers and listeners and participants and all our brothers and sisters, both in the diaspora and on the continent. I am humbled to be on the show with you, Nia Song. We have some passionate brothers and sisters that are going to be zooming in later on, both from the continent and locally. But before we go into that topic, and I'll start calling our brothers and sisters. I'm a fan of your editorials. As far as I'm concerned, you are the best of the best in the business. And I'm sure, you have prepared some delicious editorials on the controversial topic, homosexuality in Africa and amongst Africa. Over to you, Niaso.
Thank you, Reverend Palm. The saying goes that homosexuality is a deviant way of life, but we on this program are not buying that. We just want to open the window or the door to let our participants have their say and tell us what they think about homosexuality and what it all means to them. So let's have this editorial first, and then we will go forward. Last week's program on witchcraft and superstition ended with Michael Jackson's words, "Heal the world and make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race." That call, that request was virtually spontaneous, coming as it were on the heels of the announced topic for today, Sunday, the 20th of October. And that topic, as you just heard us say in a few minutes ago, Reverend Palm and I, we said it, is homosexuality. To many, that should be categorized under taboo topics. But in our world of the 21st century, nothing is taboo anymore. What with the internet, what with the invasive social media, they're in your bedroom, they're in your kitchen, they're in your bathroom, they are everywhere. They go with you to work and back from work. So discussing homosexuality to some seems like endorsing the idea. To others, discussing the topic is as normal as brushing one's teeth. Yet, some people shudder or frown when the topic is set out aloud. But why? Africa Online is a neutral medium with a noble mission. Discuss such subjects as directly or indirectly impact human life on the African continent in particular, and of course, the entire world. The goal for Africa Online being to raise awareness, to seek solutions, and to seek solutions to the issues raised on such discussions, and of course, to offer, if we can, or propose, where possible, such solutions as may help us wrap around and move out of the topic, or embrace the topic, or make it a better thing for everybody on the continent and in the world. Homosexuality, therefore, may be taboo to many, but it has become a reality in many homes, in many communities, and in many countries. In fact, 32 of Africa's 55 countries or so see it with an offensive eye, passing legislation to ban it or quarantine it. Such governments may be on the side of human history. Homosexuality was not talked about in years gone by. The believer's manual alludes to it not to praise it or glorify it, rather, it just alludes to it to warn mankind against bringing on itself such problems as were uncalled from creation. The believer in his or herself insists, man and woman, he created them. So where did this all come from, and what does it really mean? Wikipedia, that free encyclopedia, tells us that, and we quote, homosexuality is romantic attraction, sexual attraction, or sexual behavior between members of the same sex or gender. As a sexual orientation, it continues, homosexuality is an enduring pattern of emotional, romantic, and/or sexual attractions to people of the same sex. End of the quote. Simone de Beauvoir is quoted to have said, and we quote her, "In itself, homosexuality is as limiting as heterosexuality. The ideal should be to be capable of loving a woman or a man, either a human being without feeling fear, restraint, or obligation." End of the quote. Whatever definition we give it, no matter through what lenses we see it, homosexuality has become an inconvenient reality in our world. Some call it the elephant in the room, but we can accommodate that elephant no matter how little space it occupies or how large the space may be. Whatever it is, embrace it or not, embrace it or shun it, it is something we have to live with, to tolerate, and to let it be. So to paraphrase a musical group, 10th Avenue North, and to draw the curtain on this reflection, let us ask, why are you striving these days? Why are you trying to earn grace? Why are you crying? Let me lift your face. Just don't turn away, because my hands are holding you. We on Africa Online may not be holding you in our hands in a literal sense, but we seek through our discussion to put a smile on your face, to cheer you up, and to reassure you, because you are a child of this world and you have a right to be here. And so bring every life into conformity with reality is the ongoing work of this platform. That is our duty, to bring life into every home, into every street corner, and into every country. All it takes is relentless commitment to, all it takes is relentless commitment and a purposeful pursuit of the ideals and the ideas that we stand up for. So homosexuality or heterosexuality, whatever it is, we are here because you are there. Join us in this discussion. Let us go deep into it and see what it takes to be or not to be, to accept it or not to accept it, but to live with it, because it is a living reality. Reverend Palm, I know that you are itching after that to ask some questions. So let's get this discussion going.
Okay, Niasong, thank you so much for that powerful editorial. Can you hear me?
I hear you 100%.
Okay, I see my sister Natasha. I just unmuted. Sister Natasha, your mic is muted. If you can unmute your mic, and Dr. Kumba, both your mic and your videos are okay. I just unmuted Dr. Kumba. Dr. Kumba, your video is muted. You know, want to welcome you guys, or you ladies on the show. I don't know where the African brothers are. I'm sure some of them will be joining us later. Dr. Ogoji is regular. You know, so Nia, so I would like to give the airways to our sisters, Sister Natasha and then Dr. Kumba. But Dr. Kumba, your video is muted, and Sister Natasha, your audio is muted, your video is on. So if you speak, we will not be able to hear you, Sister Natasha. By the way, Sister Natasha is from Rwanda. Okay, Sister Natasha, let's hear your take on homosexuality and what you think about it. You know, can you hear us, Sister Natasha? Sister Natasha, can you hear? Oh, your audio is out. Okay, let Dr. Kumba go ahead, and then while Sister Natasha work on her audio.
Yes.
Hello,
Dr.
good afternoon.
Kumba welcome to the program again.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here always, as long as we do something that, or say something that can help somebody learn something new or change their life in any way. Now, homosexuality. I listened to the editorial, and that was quite I don't want to say, let me say comprehensive. It was good, and it's good to know that homosexuality is a topic that touches very many aspects of the lives of the human person, because the human person in his sexuality is created to have a particular orientation from the beginning. And when I say that, I can explain myself by saying that when God created Adam, and all at the end of creation, he looked at everything and it was good, but he saw one need: companionship. Adam needed a companion. And God did not make a companion of the same sex for Adam. He made a companion of the opposite sex. That's why we have the two genders, because it's something that's established by creation. And so we come to say that when God created man, God made man, created them male and female. And this emphasis is very obvious in the book of Genesis when the statement says he created them male and female, and goes on to say male and female he created them, restates it and rearranges the words just to emphasize on that statement. If God did that, the Christian that we are, knowing who God is to us, all knowing God did that, one wants to wonder what happened? Where did man think that there can be something like homosexuality? Because God's plan, obviously, from his own work, is heterosexuality, which means in any sexual behavior, any sexual orientation should produce an attraction between a male and a female, people of the opposite sex. That's why God made those two genders. He made them male and female, so that the attraction should be opposite, not same, logically. But we find in man a situation where there is attraction to the same sex. Well, when it is male, we say homosexuality more easily. In females, we say lesbianism. But that is not a clearly normal behavior. And health science, psychology, psychiatrists, people have done a lot of research into it to try to explain this behavior, because man's behavior is not is constantly under study. Has never been ignored by medical or any other science. And so the sexual behavior too has been studied a lot. And one of the things that has been troubling the minds of those who study is the question, why this orientation? Because if one is supposed to be, if human beings are meant to be heterosexual, why then do we have a same-sex attraction? People have come up with all kinds of theories. But I want to say, way back to how many centuries ago, people have started looking into this thing. And the only disappointment I can say I have up till now is that there is no straight answer to the why question, despite the amount of research that has gone into it. Because each time they come up with one theory, another researcher will come and debunk one theory, the other one will come out. So there have been too many theories about homosexuality and why it's happening. Why do people have the same sex attraction? Oh, there's a part of the brain that does this, does that. There's so much of it that has been documented. But for me, from a Christian standpoint, and as a medical doctor, I just simply tell myself that it is a perverted behavior. There is no way we can run away from it, from that statement. People want to say, oh, why do we say it's perverted? Let's research into their brains. Let's research into it is perverted, it is perverted. As long as it contradicts natural law, it's a perverted behavior. And being a perverted behavior, one wants to wonder, why is it there? The simple explanation, or one of the simple explanations to perverted behavior, is what we were talking about last time, demonism. Is evil. Because when God created man, God meant the existence of man to be a good thing. God meant for man to be happy. God meant for man to be like God and live happily practically in a paradise of the Garden of Eden. But there is an evil presence that sets in and perverts everything. I'm sorry, just a second. Let me clear that noise you're hearing there.
Okay. Yes, so while you clear that noise, we're going to be asking a question so that when you come back, you pick up from there. I know that you were born into a culture where there was man and woman. You only knew your father and your mother. You only saw men and women going around together. You transitioned through primary, secondary school, and you might have been hit by that word lesbian or homosexual in secondary school or in university. How did you feel when you first heard such words, lesbian or homosexual? Did it strike a note in you? Did it create some inquisitive longing in you to know what all this is all about? If you've cleared the noise, maybe you can now pick up from there.
Yes, I can. The first time I heard that word certainly was in secondary school, and it was more of a, I want to call it a kind of shock. Well, what kind of word is that? But because that word existed, it was clear to me, obviously, that something must be happening that gives it that name. And so one starts asking questions and starts being inquisitive and starts wondering, how does this come about? How does this come about? And as I advanced in age and in education, it became clearer and clearer. And that's why I can very conveniently tell myself that it's a perverted behavior. It's not expected to be a straight behavior. And like you said, from my background, I'm an African child, grew up in a typical African setting. But let's get something clear. It is not un-African. Homosexuality is not un-African. We might not have given it the kind of articulation that it is receiving now, but it has been there from a long time ago. Let me not say from the beginning, from a long time ago. From the documents that one sees about homosexuality, it seems to have been there from a long time ago. But like many other things that have been distorted in the history of man, one wonders whether this is also a distortion, because some of the European explorers who arrived in Africa way back in the 18th or early 19th century seem to have documented homosexuality amongst Africans. But the question is, how authentic is that? Because Africans were perceived by the European explorers as a lower class, as less than human. So could it be that some of the things that are documented historically were were in themselves perverted, so that it looks like back in Africa, this thing has been happening for a long time? Because growing up, one didn't have a sense of it as such in the community. But looking at historical documents, it seems to have been there. So I'm left with that confusion of wondering whether this is one of those distortions of history or really just for real that it has been there. But if it has been there, why is it no longer there? If it has been there, why do African states have laws against it? Because a lot of African states have laws against it.
Yes, in fact, 32 of the 55 countries have laws against it. So why today? I mean, why did it not start from the beginning?
Exactly. So the questions are very many. It's a very cloudy area of information in my mind, because if it were clearer, we should have clearer facts than we have. But we don't have the clearer facts. But still, it still boils down to one thing: it's a perverted behavior. Psychiatrists have tried to study it and see how to help those who have that perversion. But I want to say here that in practice, in medical practice, there is something that is happening now that, in my mind, promotes that behavior. We have a lot of health packages. You know, this thing of poverty in Africa, that things must be handed down to Africa. A lot of health packages have as attached conditions the inclusion of LGBTs. That means no distinction. So LGBT is lesbian, bisexual, whatever, transgender. It's to my mind, it's weird, because why do we start classifying people with those kind of classifications? The human being ontologically originally has a certain orientation. Why are we bringing out an orientation and trying to project it? And you know, the more we project it, the more it's taking roots in the community. So my thinking is that this whole problem of homosexuality, this whole issue of homosexuality is a kind of A perversion, yes, but in our time, it's one of those ills that is eating into the fabric of society. It's one of those ills that is taking man away from man's original mission. It's one of those ills that is deviating man from where God wants man to be. And of course, once we start saying that, there is somebody in the background promoting it, the evil one. That's where I see it. Because there is no reason, there is just no reason that there's no reason to explain why a man is attracted to a man and a woman is attracted to a woman. There's no reason. In the first place, why is there a sexuality in place? Sexuality is in place for God's divine job of procreation. So if God allows a man to be attracted to a man, how do they procreate? Because that's why he created sexuality. And then we start, you hear us in medical science saying, oh, the brain is female and the external organs are male. So the mind is thinking in a female manner. What nonsense? Which God created that person?
And that is why I was going to ask the next question. Do you think anybody is born homosexual or lesbian?
I don't think so. In fact, instead, what we may have in science clearly is what is called I don't get the name clearly in my head now, but there's something about a hermaphrodite, somebody who may have a set of chromosomes and genes that make him or her have both sex organs. So the hormonal system in the person which controls sexuality may be a bit confused, but that is not the same like homosexuality and lesbianism. It's not the same thing. This is a small group of people who may come out with, just like other chromosomal errors that we have in medicine. There could be a chromosomal error and somebody comes out with mixed sex, a mixed gender. That's not the same thing. So to tell me, for example, that somebody has a female genitals and has a male orientation in the mind is very absurd. It's very, very absurd and difficult to explain. And that brings us to say that it is the basis on which we now have the industry of transgender emerging in a very, very rapid manner. Because people want to tell them.
When you go to the laboratory and craft out these, do they meet the divine purpose? Can they procreate?
This is the point. That's the point I'm trying to make. They cannot procreate. Therefore, they defeat natural law. Therefore, they are not natural. They are not supposed to exist. You see, this is where that's why it's a perversion in my thinking, because the natural process is there, the natural tendency is there, the natural inclination is there, and it's natural is natural. Science, medical science has studied hormones in male and hormones in female. It is obvious that when people are male or female, they have certain hormones that promote their growth and development and all that it takes to act as male or act as female. It is there. So for us to start looking for things where they don't exist, and like you say, fabricating them in the lab, it is so unfortunate for mankind that because God gave us intelligence, we are using the intelligence against our own selves, against mankind himself. It is so unfortunate. But that said, I still want to go back to say that homosexuality is a perversion, a complete perversion. And that's why many of them, whether they admit it or not, have serious psychological problems. They are not happy people. They are not happy people. They cannot excel in the way they are supposed to excel, because the sexuality of the human person is meant to bring joy and happiness to the human person. That's God's purpose. And in the process, procreate. That's God's purpose. So once you deviate from that purpose, that basic joy of life is lost. And so you find, that's why even looking at the evolution of the transgender business industry that I was mentioning, how many transgender women want to go back to being males? They are there. They are uncomfortable in the new body or in the new presentation or whatever they call it. So it is a problem. And that's why also, even when we're talking about homosexuality, you will find that a good number of the males who are homosexual are also heterosexual.
Okay, Dr. Kumba, sorry, I'm mixing up the two. I will let you take a sip of water. Reverend Pam, you are moderating, and streaming this program on Facebook. Have you other people that have come in to whom we can ask our questions? And what happened to Natasha?
Yes, actually, she was having this her first time using Zoom. So she was on, her audio and video were on, but we lost her. So I encourage her to dial back in. We have some people that are going to dialing back in. I just checked on Facebook and we are streaming. That's why you see my eyes moving back and forth. Hopefully, one of these days we'll get a volunteer. But what Dr. Kumba is saying is so appropriate. People come up with all this. We don't go around, the heterosexuals don't go around telling people they are heterosexuals. And whatever you do in your bedroom, that's between you and God. Please don't bring it to our faces. Why the attention? Why must we know what you do in your bedroom? We are not there. We're not interested. And the sad thing again is, like I said, I'm watching this thing on Facebook just to make sure it's streaming right. But like our sister was saying, in Leviticus, right from the beginning, actually, let me go to Genesis, from the beginning. Genesis 2:18, God says that it's not good for man to be alone. So if God, realized that, the man that he created needed a female, and he actually put Adam to sleep and took a rib out of Adam to make a woman. God cannot be wrong. He's our manufacturer. He's the author and finisher of our faith. So who in these modern days, homosexuality is not new. It happened in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah. So by why does man think that they know better than their creator? You understand what I'm saying? And then in Leviticus chapter 18 and also chapter 20, especially of 18 says, clearly says if a man sleeps with a man, it's an abomination. That's what the Bible is saying. It's not about us. I want to make something. God does not hate homosexuals. He hates the sin, homosexuality. And I don't think any of us should pass judgment on homosexuals or dislike them because they have been victims of crime. What we need to do is pray for them, and love them. Because we don't know, some of them probably were molested as children, by people of members of family or friends and people of the same sex. We don't know their story. So again, the problem is not the homosexuals, the problem is the sin, homosexuality, just like any other sin, adultery, theft. God hates the sin. Over to you, Nini Asong.
Yes, Reverend Pam, thank you. Yes, we'll go back across the Atlantic Ocean to Dakar, Senegal, where Dr. Kumba is waiting for us to ask her more questions. Now, Dr. Kumba, you, as we said earlier, you grew up in an environment which did not know what is happening today. But now we live in this world with it. Have you come across it recently in your work?
Yes, of course. When we are talking about, especially with the advent of HIV and AIDS, most of the people who turned out HIV were homosexual some way or another. That is the reality in our work. But like Reverend Pam has just said, it's a sin like many other sins. And our society needs to work on eradicating it instead of promoting it, because when it is sinful, it is sinful. It's not good for man. And when we find society continuously promoting and nurturing it, it becomes a bit embarrassing, because where is man heading to? Reverend Pam has clearly mentioned it was one of the sins of Sodom and Gomorrah. And if we are today, even as going as far as legalizing it, what are we doing to ourselves as human beings? What's mankind doing to man? It's a very serious problem, because if God could punish sins, and then we know a sin, and we are trying to nurture it. It is so much against our own very existence. It's so much against our own very existence and our own very survival that one is taken aback by what man is doing to man.
So, all said and done, has education promoted or diminished the existence of homosexuality?
I don't want to answer that question in a straight yes or no manner, because that would require a lot of some kind of anthropological research backing. But I want to say that looking at the way things have been. 1 second, please.
Yes, sure. Yes. So we are discussing homosexuality. We do not condemn homosexuals. We condemn the act of homosexuality. We are not for or against as such, even though we used the word condemn a short while ago. We are just saying that topics like this merit discussion because out there are people who are wondering what it is all about. They don't understand what it means. They don't understand what it takes. So shedding the light on homosexuality is a way of educating the public so that before people go into it, they know what they are going to face. Of course, the question also comes up. What if it happens to you ignorantly? You didn't know about it, but suddenly your own son or your own daughter come and during dinner in the house or during a conversation at home, he or she says, oh, I'm lesbian or I'm homosexual. How will you as a father or as a mother take it? You grew up in a different area, era, and you did not know about this. But now your son or your daughter tell you about it. How will you take it? What will you do? Those are the things we are discussing. So, Dr. Kumba, I see you are back now. Yes, if you can continue, then we will let the conversation continue to flow until other contributors can come in to relieve you so that I have a sip of water, as I always say.
Yes, if my son or daughter sat at table with me and mentioned all that, I would know that, first of all, as a parent, I am in trouble. That's my honest. Trouble because that's what I'm coming to that. Trouble because
okay.
Trouble because as I say, I have come to understand it as a perverted behavior. So how do I have a perverted person I have raised? What happened? What went wrong? And so that is where my own problem will be. That's why I will be in trouble because I have just raised a perverted person. Now, in the process of raising children, we expose them, sure, to the environment, to the enlarged society and community. But as parents, we play a much larger role. That's why as a parent, especially in Catholic education in Cameroon, where my children went to school, I used to always say in PTA meetings, the college will never replace you, the parent. You know, if you're a parent and you see that your child is telling you that, then you look into yourself first. What has gone wrong? Because you have to start from there. What has gone wrong? Did my child learn enough values within the home for a start? Did I neglect something and allow the school to go too far so that friends have influenced my child? The parent must first of all look into themselves. Because until you start with yourself as a parent, you won't be able to correct it. Don't dump it on the child and start shouting, my child is that, my child is this. It starts with you, the parent. Secondly, if you are able as a parent to say, okay, maybe I did my best, but what happened? What happened? Then you can now start interviewing that child. By the time you have evaluated yourself as a parent, honestly, you can now open a conversation with your child without judging them, without condemning them, but you must open a conversation that gives that child the orientation you want them to have. What is this about? You are a homosexual, what does it mean to you? Let the child tell you. Tell the child what is not. The child is telling you what is, tell them what is not, for example. Make the conversation as positive as possible, because that is what you do with many other perverted behaviors, you know, drug, alcohol, and all. You must start by evaluating the situation from your standpoint as a parent, and then you go to the child's standpoint, and then you carry on a very importantly positive conversation with that child for a long time. It's not a one-time conversation, and you don't push the child. Once you see the child getting maybe irritated by your conversation, okay, we'll talk about it another time, don't worry, you stop the conversation. But a child who tells you that needs help, and the parent should not ignore that.
Ania Song, Dr. Kumba, thank you so much. We have someone, I'm not quite sure of the name, but it's the ACLA South Africa. So Nia Song, let's give that person the airways. I'm not sure.
Yes, please. Yeah, let that person take over, introduce themselves, and get the conversation going.
You want to pose a question to them?
Yeah, the question is homosexuality. How will you feel if at dinner table or during conversation at home, your son or your daughter tell you they're lesbian or they're homosexual? How will you take it? What will you do? Is the person taking the question?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you for coming in. And who may you be, please? Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm Pastor Richard Firm. I'm sorry, my contact is showing us South Africa. I have some dealings with South Africa.
Okay.
So it's okay. It's okay.
I have a group there, so we use this connection for that purpose.
Yes.
Okay, that's Dr. Pastor Richard Ferrin. You know, I just invited him late. So, Dr. Ferrin, whenever you get a chance, turn on your video. But you're welcome on the show. Go ahead and answer the question that Mr. Asonglefac Nkemleke posed to you.
Okay, I think coming from the angle of a pastor, for me, this is very important. I've seen people who struggle with that particular behavior, and I know it's a big challenge to many people. And I think when we look at it at the angle of the church, there's always a great level of condemnation when it comes to homosexuality. And I feel like so many people that are church folks, Christians, they have this blatant statement that homosexuality is sin. I know we can find scriptural backing for that, but it's important for us to be able to go deeper, to not just say, hey, this is sin, and not understand the struggles that the particular individual is going through. I've talked with people who are actually begging God every day to take away those emotions. People who cry every night and they're filled with guilt, with shame, with condemnation. And the whole thing about it is not just saying this is sin, but can we offer genuine solutions to people like that have a desire to come out of that? And, you know, what alternatives do we have to give to them? So I think for me, I don't know if we have the full findings of why people behave in this particular way. When I talk about full findings, I'm talking about scientifically. If we have enough evidence for such behaviors, why do people behave like that? Why are people attracted to the same sex? And I know sometimes people will say, well, scientifically, there's nothing to prove that it is okay or that people are born that way. But I think with time, you never know what could be found out as concerned that particular behavior. So I don't want to just go ahead and draw conclusions, but I want to say it's part of our brokenness as humanity. And for me, if somebody comes with a genuine heart and say, this is what I'm going through, this is what I'm struggling with, I will want to open up to them, listen to them more, pray with them more, and show them the love of God.
That's very good. But before there was faith, there was the human being. The human being was created and given a free will. Can we say that faith failed in one way and let the free will dominate so that you can choose, pick and choose whatever you want to do with yourself?
Yeah, I
Did
think
faith fail?
Yes, that's a good question. That's a good question. My thing about this whole issue of choice and not choice, let me put it that way, is that everything that comes out of the hand of God is good. When it comes down to us, then it begins to change. Now, I know that there are people who have built that kind of behavior over time. I've seen people who originally they were married, then they had a difficult marriage, and then they say, oh, I will not deal with any man anymore, I'll start relating but with women. So that's a choice. But I've also seen people who, you know, naturally, well, somehow they just from a young age you just see them, they are behaving, girls almost behaving like boys, and boys almost behaving like girls. And you ask yourself the question, what is actually happening in the inside of them? Now, let me give an example of something which I want us to think about. I know of this runner, a woman, and I think she was supposed to compete in a running competition, and they tested her hormone levels, and they noticed that her testosterone levels were very high. So they didn't want to classify her in the group of women. So with those chemicals working in the body of a woman and that are too high, sometimes some of those things play an effect. That's why I say we don't have the full scientific facts, and I'm just being careful to draw conclusions here.
Yes. Now, can we say that society has caused some of these things to happen, like the case you just mentioned? Why did they have to tell this girl that she cannot perform in the female group? Whatever is in her body is the creation that she came with. Why should we on earth as human beings tell her no, because this thing is so high, you only go to that category? Aren't we pushing people out of the way just to fit in maybe other people that we think are of less have less testosterone than others?
Before you answer, so let me just make sure we understand this particular situation. Was she a transgender or a female that was taking testosterone? Because
she wasn't taking testosterone. She was a female.
Okay.
But her testosterone levels were so high that they wanted to eliminate her from the female league, because it kind of made her more of a man.
Okay.
Of a woman.
Okay, right. Dr. Kumba has a hand up. We just wanted to clarify that. Just
yes.
She was born female. So Dr. Kumba's hands are up.
Yes.
I want to say that the example on the table about the athlete, it's an example that we must handle with care, because there are a few cases of females with raised testosterone, yes. But what is raising the testosterone? We need to be careful. There are even tumors, some sort of forms of cancers developing, which can raise testosterone levels. There are many things that can be responsible for testosterone levels to be high. If a woman has high testosterone levels, that's a medical situation that should be handled as a medical situation. It should not be allowed to appear as if she can end up saying, I'm a lesbian because I feel like a male, you know? And I want to go back to emphasize I listened to the pastor through, and he's right. We are not supposed to be judgmental. We are not supposed to just say it's a sin and throw it aside. But we are saying it's a sin so that we can handle, give it a name and handle it. Because if you don't give it a name, then you don't handle it properly. That's my opinion. And that's what I think it is. If we think and agree that homosexuality is sinful, right back from biblical stories, it is sinful. Now, like in every other sin, what can we do to handle it as sin? We are not judging when we say it's a sin. We are making a statement of fact that it's a sin. It's not yet a judgment. Because by what I mean by that, if I say X is a homosexual, I know therefore I've said X is sinful, but I have not yet judged X completely, because I have not condemned him. I have not made any other statements about him. I am just making a statement of fact. He is homo. It's like saying this boy is a thief, or this young man is a murderer. It's a statement of fact, but we are not condemning yet. We are therefore looking at what do we do. If the pastor rightfully asked that question, what do we do? What do we do? We get help. And there are a lot, myriads of counseling services available. In fact, churches should avail themselves of counselors. Because if we have counselors and people who can give orientation to people who are in need in that manner, it is very helpful. My surprise in many ways is that with the advent of HIV/AIDS, counseling became so common, but the counseling was focused on HIV/AIDS. But we seem not to see that there's a lot more counseling needed than just focusing on one situation. And we are saying even that this HIV/AIDS of a situation is closely related to homosexuality, has been documented to be very closely related. And it is one of the things that confirms the perversion of that action, of that behavior, of that attitude. Because if it is associated with disease, something is not right. God did not make man God did not make man or create man to destroy himself. God created man to live and live joyfully, as I will always say. But what has man done to man? Man has destroyed man. And why is man destroying man? Because man has opened their arms and embraced the devil, the one who is the deviant, the one who is the pervert. That's where man is. That's the way I see it, especially in modern times. If people who know me and have worked closely with me, including my pastors, I'm a Catholic, including some priests, will say, "Hey, Dr. Vivian, stop seeing spirits." I said, "No, I don't see spirits." I smell them. Because to be honest, if you open your eyes well in the society as you walk around, you will smell the presence of the devil. That's my reality. That's my honest take. Because if it is not demonic, if it is not evil, how does man turn away from what God has made, which is good? We are talking about homosexuality. What has homosexuality led us to? It has led us to same-sex marriages. And then we're talking about adopting children. Who would deliver children for those people to adopt?
Exactly.
What are we talking about? Man is deviating, and any deviation from the norm, any deviation from the natural law, any deviation from what the Maker put in place, as far as I, Dr. Kumba, am concerned, is called evil. Because the Maker put in place what is good. And the little theology I studied tells me that evil is the absence of good. So what's good is absent, it's evil. It's as simple as that. They are not opposing forces. That's very important. But once good is absent, there is evil. So if God is not there, if we are not doing the divine thing, then what are we doing? It's evil.
So what happened? Yeah, Dr. Kumba. So what happened along the way? And also to the pastor, I asked this question earlier in a different way. What happened along the way? Why did man go away from the good that God meant from the beginning? Was it the fault of the Garden of Eden? Was it the failure in the Garden of Eden that led to all this? Or why do we think this has happened to mankind? Even in spite of the Sodom and Gomorrah, where the lady was turned into a pillar of salt, we still have not learned what went wrong along the way. Maybe the pastor will go first.
Yeah, I think over time, wickedness has increased. In the Garden of Eden, everything was perfect. But once man fell from grace and from his connection to God, I think that's where the fall began. And I want to add that we are still falling. So that there are worse things to come. So homosexuality, all of those other things, they're part of the fall. They're part of our brokenness. They're part of our shortcomings. And I think when something is broken, we bring it back to the cross, we bring it back to the Lord, and we look for ways on how to fix it. We pray about it. So I think basically it's just a part of our human shortcomings, and it's like any other sin, though we emphasize on it sometimes, but we have really fallen away from God's original purpose and his original plan for himself.
Dr. Kumba, your take.
Yes, the pastor is very right. We start from the Garden of Eden, man falls, and then man becomes something else from what God had planned for man to be. And so the fall of man has been at the base of all these other ills, including homosexuality. And that's why man in his fallen nature is not in the nature that God is not. It's not exactly the same like what God created. That's why our nature as we are today is called the fallen nature. But in the fallen nature, we have grace. And if we have grace, it means we can do anything good. Our fallen nature has not condemned us to anything yet. But we have a choice. Asong, you were talking about choice. We have a choice. Now, we have a fallen nature. We are sinful. We are committing so many sins by the hour, by the second, by the minute. But what is happening? God has said, I'm here. I am all loving. I am all merciful. I have grace and mercy available to you. Are we taking it? The answer is no, we are not. That's why we are getting to where we are getting. Because imagine what man is doing to man. The inhumanity of man to, man's inhumanity is getting worse. And it's getting worse by choice. Because as a medical doctor, if I'm sitting in my office or in my practice and there is a woman in labor whom I'm supposed to operate upon to save her head and her baby, and I say no because they didn't give me so much money, I will not go to theater, and we lose a mother and a baby. That's so inhuman, and it is common. That's what man is doing. If I'm sitting in an office, I'm a politician, and I know that if I promote this particular principle, it's going to help my politics. I promote it, and so I promote homosexuality. It is evil, and that's what man is doing. Man is promoting nonsense for personal interest that don't last because all is vanity. So what are we doing? Because even if you were made the president of the whole world today, it doesn't mean that you will live forever. You will still die and leave that office. So what are we really, really doing as man? I think the real issue here is that man needs to really look inwards. And for man to be able to look inwards, the church must be very helpful. I'm glad we have a pastor on the program. The church must be very helpful. And if the church is helping adequately, we will be hoping to get somewhere. I cannot evaluate what the church is doing because I don't belong to many churches. I don't belong to many places. I belong in my one small corner. I cannot evaluate what the church is doing. But I'm making a statement of fact that if the church is helping, we will be getting somewhere. Because I really don't see how we can be raising children or running communities with all this evil and just letting it go by. It's just impossible. Parents have
let me jump, Doctor. Let me jump into your point on the church and things like that. I think the first thing that we do is for sure we preach against things that we know are unbiblical. We have to make mention of that. We have to preach against it and encourage people. But I want us to, when we are approaching issues like this that are difficult issues, to really not look at it from the outside. Put yourself in the position of that person who is going through that challenge. I was telling somebody the other day that there's a show that I really like on TV. And it's not a sinful show. It's just a regular show. I don't want to tell you the show. But I made up my mind that I was going to stop watching that show. I'd been watching it for a long time. I made up my mind that I was going to stop. And it took me a lot of effort to put in to stop watching. Sometimes I'll just find myself, I'm back into it, watching it again. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say there are behaviors that it doesn't take a day to change. It takes the grace of God. If somebody has been in something for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, it's not just my preaching for one day that will convince them to stop. So we should be very accommodative of people. We should be very graceful to them. We should pray for them more. We should listen to them more, and give them the opportunity, hoping that God will touch their hearts and be able to make the change that they are supposed to make. So sometimes I don't just want to take a hammer and put on somebody and say, hey, you're committing this or you're doing this or that. we need to go deeper than that, understand their hearts, understand their past struggles, understand where they are coming from, and be able to help them from that angle. So I know there are some hardcore preachers that you know, they hit hard on every other deviant behavior, every other thing that is unbiblical. But I think sometimes as a pastor, we need to have the heart of the Father. The Father understands his sons, his daughters, and he gently tries to take them from where they are to where they are supposed to.
Yes, Pastor, thank you very much. That's a very, what you are saying is very pertinent. The need to accommodate. But I still go back to the church and say that we accommodate them. We pray for them. We understand them. We try to be empathic. We go along with them. But there is need for action. Prayer without action, I don't know how much it can do. The pastor will tell me, because if you are praying, for instance, that we have 10 young adults in the church, in our own particular church community. For example, I take a particular church community and say in our particular church, we have identified 10 young adults who are homosexuals. We are praying for them. Prayer will not solve their problem. They need a strong counseling program. They need a very supportive system in that same church. But they must not be condoned and understood. They must not understand that because we have understood what they are going through, are accepting it as, okay, it's the way you are. It's your own mindset. It is your own orientation.
Not at all, yeah.
Yes, but if we can put in place a supportive program for them, there must be love, there must be charity, there must be faith. We need to do it in hope. And as I said, there is grace. The grace is abundant. What is flowing from Calvary is grace. We draw on it and use it to counsel these people. But that's why I'm still saying that if we could, as church, do a good amount of work, we will be getting somewhere. But the politics of the human person is in every fabric of our lives. And we start looking at how will this help me, how will this not help me? It's no longer about community, it's about me. Whether pastor or priest or whatever, I'm not discriminating it. I'm saying it without a fear of contradiction. People have gone too selfish. People have gone too personal in the way they look at what should be community. And it's a problem. Because if you set up a counseling session in the church, who will sponsor it? Who will pay the counselor? Money for this will go for this. These are all intrigues. I know them.
Yes, but that being said, yes, continue. Yes. Yeah, go ahead, please.
But I'm trying to say that we need to, because of this kind of discussions, we need to we are doing this to raise the awareness of the need. We're not doing it to criticize anybody or condemn anybody or evaluate anything anybody is doing. But we're doing it to say that there is a need somewhere. Can I, in my little corner, look at what I am doing to meet that need and do something about it? I have a bishop who always says that light a candle, don't curse the darkness. That's and right. If you light your candle and one person sees a light, you have succeeded. Don't look for 10 people to see that light.
That's true.
So what we are saying here is not to condemn anybody or evaluate anybody. What we are saying here is to raise a certain awareness that something needs to be done at any level with any scale. Your scale doesn't matter. Just get one volunteer in your church who can start this counseling process. Get the person a training. Some of us can train. Online trainings are available. We will train for you. And you do counseling in your church. Because these sins are getting out of hand. And mankind is making them get out of hand. When we sign laws for same-sex marriages, we are making sin impossible. We are getting it out of hand. It's so difficult to deal with it. It is difficult.
Okay, Dr. Kumba and our pastor, Pastor Ferrin, we are happy that you are on, but don't go away. We're getting to the top of the hour. We usually go to Houston, Texas, but today I think we'll be going to Dallas, Texas, to call on Reverend Palm to not only make a comment about what we're discussing, but also give us an announcement about what is coming on the program next time around. Reverend Palm, I believe you are ready.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, you're right. You actually remember that I'm in Dallas, you know, and Dr. Ferim is also in Dallas. So today's show should be called Dallas, you know. But I am so grateful to God. Dr. Kumba, you are awesome. You rock. Dr. Ferim, you are amazing. And we'll hopefully be seeing you whenever you're in the country on these shows, because the purpose is to raise awareness about issues that affect Africans, seek solutions to those issues, and hopefully make progress. Homosexuality has been, you know, a topic that we don't discuss, but it exists in our community. Even our children's generation, there are a lot of our children that are being messed up with those things. You know, so I'm going to announce the topic, but I want to make some comments and then pose a couple of questions to Dr. Kumba and Dr. Ferim. Yes, the end of the month, the last Sunday of the month, we always tackle a health topic. This month, starting tomorrow, we're going to be talking about malaria, which is the topic we've handled before. And our very own Dr. Kumba has agreed to tackle that topic. She has more than 20 years of experience on the continent in more than in multiple countries. I'm not going to name them, but you know, she's originally from Cameroon, but she's practiced in Nigeria, in Senegal, and she's very bilingual, actually trilingual, because she speaks French. She's fluent in French, English, Hausa, and of course Bangwa. You know, so Dr. Kumba, you are God sent. We appreciate you. We love you. And Dr. Ferim is a man of God, but also has expertise in multiple things. And he's going to bring a lot of value to our brothers and sisters on the continent. Again, we're going to be talking about malaria. I think every African has, in one way or the other, been affected by malaria, either directly or indirectly, except for those who were born and bred in this country who's never visited Africa. But I want to mention a couple of things. You know, again, like we said, the first time we handled this topic, homosexuality, some people were irate that how could us Africans, we Africans, be talking about such an abominable topic? But that's the whole essence of Africa Online. Our motto is awareness, solution, and progress. So we address it. We don't keep it under the rug, because it exists. You know, it's been there from time immemorial. You know, I know, Dr. Kumba, you're stressing the church. I agree. However, it needs to start from the home. The home is the first church. In Proverbs 22:6, it says, raise up a child the way they should go, and when they grow up, they will not depart from it. A lot of times, their parents, especially in the diaspora, who puts the responsibility of raising their children in the hands of the church or the school. But charity has to start from home. Home is the first church. The parents need to instill those values in the children. So by the time they get to church or they get to the school, if somebody is talking about homosexuality, there are schools that are trying to make bathrooms, you know, unisex, or trying to get transgenders to use female bathrooms. That is ridiculous. You know, again, it is ridiculous. And yes, when we're talking about, Dr. Kumba, you also talked about grace. Yes, in Romans 5:20, it says, where sin abound, grace did much more abound. Our God is a merciful God. His grace is sufficient for a lot of things. So Dr. Ferim mentioned about showing these people love. We have to show them love, because some of these people get involved in these deviant behaviors because they can't find love in the church or in the home. There's a story, I don't know who the author is. It said Jesus saw a child outside the church crying. And when Jesus asked the child why the child was crying, the child said he's been trying to get into the church and nobody will let him in. And Jesus wiped his tears away and said, don't cry, because I have been trying to get into that church and nobody will let me in. You know, and we know the church has its own problems. I'm a servant of God, but we need to call a spade a spade. There are some preachers that preach vehemently against homosexuality, but they themselves, behind the scenes, are involved in it. You know, I don't need to tell you who they are, just Google it. But I want to welcome Dr. Ogoji, our faithful point physician. So before Dr. Ferim and Dr. Kumba goes, let's hear Dr. Ogoji's take on this homosexuality thing. You know, and so if you have a question for Dr. Ogoji, please pose it, and then we'll come back to Dr. Kumba and Dr. Ferim. Dr. Ogoji, you're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And please, the topic, as you heard from last week, is homosexuality. So please, what is your take on this topic?
Well, For me, homosexuality is not good. I don't like it. I don't support it. However, we live in a world where they normalize things. It has been normalized in this part of the world. You have to respect them and respect their wishes. The only problem, or their choices, please. The only problem I have there is that they are trying to impose it to our children. That's my only problem, because do your gay stuff in your house and not bring it to the community.
There you go.
In the local library, I live in a city called Spokane. We have public library. There's what they call, it's called, here's the name. It's this gay people dress with guys dressed like women, wear handbag, and come to the library and read story to children. So the library has story time that's been going on for years and years and years. For some reason, these gay people now say they want to start reading stories to children in public library. They call it a name. I have to Google it before when I start talking. And then they're allowed to come and read story to children. And this protest left and right. The library say, well, if A can read story to children, B can read story to children. That is wrong. Because if a guy dressed like a woman and call herself X, Y, and Z and come and read story to children under 5 years, they're trying to make the children normalize gay. So that's what about liberty and so-called civilization and so-called freedom of speech and freedom of choice is causing. For me, gay is a condition that is learned. Okay? I've seen a woman who has been married to a man 3 times.
Huh?
Because of a bad experience, no, married to 3 times, a woman, I mean, had a normal relationship with guys, a lady dated guys 3-4 times, had a normal relationship, and that was fine. But she divorced 3 times. I said, okay, I'm done with men. Now I'm gay. She went and married a woman. After 2 years, she got divorced. I said, what happened again? He said, well, you know. He said, no, when I used to marry to men,
Oh my God.
when I used to marry to men, when we were fighting, the guy would just leave the house and run away. But now when I'm fighting, my husband stays there, I will fight because also it's a woman. So she doesn't want to do woman anymore. She prefers men now. So if you can change through front and back, it's not genetic. It's a learned habit.
Good.
Yes. Was that your last point for this at this time? If so,
Well, I can add more. So that's one. So they should live their life. If they have a choice, I would respect their choice. I would not discriminate against them, but don't make my children think it's normal. Okay? And don't make it a societal thing. Live your life in your house.
So, Dr. Kumba, Dr. Ferin, what are your takes on this idea of letting them live their lives in their privacy rather than bringing it to the public library to indoctrinate children? Dr. Kumba, maybe you want to go out first. You're across the Atlantic.
Yeah, very obviously, Dr. Goje is very right about that because, I mean, like every sin, how many people want to bring their sin to the public? That's why this is becoming an embarrassment because people don't even see it again as a sin. That's why it's an issue, a very big issue. Because with sin, in fact, people who sin hide themselves to sin. You know, because people, the mind of man is very well endowed by the Creator to understand the difference between what is good and what is bad. And when people are doing it and they know it's bad, they don't want to do it in public. But because we have come, this is the society is getting a bit towards some kind of narcissistic tendencies in which a lie becomes the truth. You know, we lie to ourselves. We think that this is a normal behavior. And Dr. Goje has rightly said it, it's a learned behavior. It's not natural. There is no gene anywhere. They have struggled to look for those genes. There are myriads of research reported up and down to look for the genes that will be contributing to this thing. They don't get it. And when they start getting clues, they themselves debunk the same clues with their very research. So it is a very big problem. The fact that society is going from calling it by its name, like I said at the beginning, to condoning it and trying to to sugarcoat the whole process. It's very bad for society, because in that way we are not able to hide it anymore. We are not able to run away. We are not able to do it in our homes. We are bringing it out to the public because the public has accepted it. I mean, even when we were growing up, people who were homosexuals were hiding it. They were hiding it. You would never have known that someone was. You hear the word, I someone, does it exist? Are there people who are like that? But there were people who are like that around us, but we didn't know it because they were hiding it. But now it's a public show because we have condoned it, we have endorsed it, we are promoting it. And so, what are we really? I keep asking the same question: what is man doing to mankind? It's a very big problem. It's a very big problem. The Maker has a lot to do here to start. I don't know whether he will remake our minds or what. I'm sure the Maker weeps every day, because this is, I mean, man, what is man doing to mankind? In every sense, it's not just about this topic we're talking about. If you take science and start one by one, if I tell you some of the things that are going on that one has come to be aware of, it is so disheartening. It is so disheartening. And to think that a right-thinking mind signs into law same-sex marriage. What is this?
An African brother.
Well, I will be the devil's advocate here, because our brother did not do it because he wanted to do it, but because of the pressure behind him. And you have to tend sometimes to bend to that pressure, because if not, your head is on the mill. So he did not do it voluntarily. I'm just being a devil's advocate. Let's continue. We don't have to do it.
Don't be advocate for anybody. How many governors, how many whatever? I'm not talking about one person. There were a lot of people involved in this thing.
That's right.
You know, and the fact that it even becomes a discussion in itself is a big issue. And that's why you start asking myself the big question: what is man doing to mankind? It's a question that I really need to be able to have answers at some point.
Exactly.
Because God endows us with all this intelligence, all this know-how, all this, all that, and then we sit back and allow the evil one to use it against us. For God's sake, what are we doing? What are we really doing?
Before Dr. Ferim jumps in, I want to share a little story. You know, I just to on a lighter note, you know, just to say, like we're talking about, Dr. Kumba, you mentioned it, Dr. Feha, it has become so acceptable, so normal. Dr. Ugoji mentioned the same thing. I remember in 1985, December, there was a Christmas party thrown in my honor because I came to the US in August 85, so I went to visit my brother. And after that party, everybody was so excited and happy during that party. So the next day, it continued with a barbecue, and the host of the barbecue was a Ghanaian married to an African American who could not make the party. And I just said to her innocently, I said, "Oh, you really missed out." I said, "Everybody at the party last night was gay." The woman went crazy. She said, "What? What I was saying gay, I was referring to happy." But she took it as homosexuality, that I was saying everybody at the party was gay in the sense of homosexuality. So my brother said, "Oh, no, she's referring to gay as being happy." You know, so you have to mind your language. But back then, people did not even want to hear it. Now, not only has it been normalized, they're demanding rights, doing petitions, doing protests. You know, again, I have nothing against anybody. I have seen somebody that came to church and she was delivered from it. She had no idea what the implications were. So there are some of these people that get into it, either they're looking for attention or they feel like somebody will say, "Oh, who really wants to be chastised or ostracized?" These people are born. Nobody's born that way. Please, God doesn't make mistakes, please. So, Dr. Ferry, I just wanted to chime in there with that little story. Just say that times have really changed. And some of our people on the country, they just copy everything they see in the West. It's well with internet now, making all of us with a click of a button. Everybody is connected. It's a global village. So I want to encourage our brothers and sisters. It's not everything that you have to copy from the white man. I'm not saying that the white man is the only one involved in this. I'm just saying not everything you see in the West is good. So Dr. Ferry, let's hear from you.
Yes, thank you. I think this is wonderful, listening to the different voices and different opinions. I think one thing that is crucial for us to understand is that the homosexual voice is a smaller voice, but they are very vocal. Is a vocal minority. So though there might be 3, 4, maybe 5% of the population, they truly speak out their minds. And when you have people like that are in positions of influence in the media and in politics,
Yes.
you really need to be careful. So those of us at the level of the church, it's not just enough to condemn. Do we have people in positions of authority that can sign laws and that can speak out against some of the things that we believe in? You know, if that doesn't happen, then I think at the end of the day, we are just going through a revolving door. Also, in many companies, I think the language that we use, we need to be very careful, because many companies these days, they're getting to what they call gay friendly, where they want to include people of all beliefs, people of all cultures. And if you speak against some of these kind of things, you might find the back door. They might kick you out. So I think the beauty of it is, when we look at it from the perspective of God, the Bible says, choose ye this day whom ye will serve.
Yeah.
So God himself gives us options. Do you want to serve me, or do you want to serve another God? Do you want to live for me, or do you want to live in a different kind of way? So I think also, when I look at it from that perspective, God gives us choices. He will not force us. So what is happening in society today, I think God will not just jump in and stop what is happening, but he will give us options till the time appointed. So that's my take on when I see people making their different choices on how to live their lives. I have my own foundation, what I believe in, and I hold dearly to that. But I also understand that people can make their choices. And God also understands and allows that to happen.
Indeed. And a moment ago, we talked about our brother who did one thing. But what about this one? A month ago at the United Nations, he said in his speech before the United Nations that his administration's global initiative to decriminalize homosexuality in the more than 70 countries of the world is going to go forward. Quote, my administration is working with other nations to stop criminalizing the criminalizing of homosexuality. Those were the words of President Donald Trump. And we stand in solidarity with LGBT people who live in countries that punish, jail, and execute people based upon sexual orientation. So do we have to embrace this way of life because of the political pressure we think we may be facing at the next election? I think that is what was behind this inclusion of this sentence in the president's address to the United Nations. It was included in New York, not from the White House as before. So this is what we're talking about. People bending to pressure from groups that are emerging just so they can get the votes at the next election. Should this be the way to go? Our guests, please take the cue.
Let me let me say something on this particular one, and maybe it will be more of a question to some of us. And the concern there is, though we are against that kind of a behavior, do we need to necessarily penalize it? Like in some countries where if you are found out to be a gay or a lesbian, you are sent to jail for 6 months to a year. And I know there are other places that also talk of even
in many African countries, it's 14 years and above even.
Okay, 14 years. Okay,
Yeah,
but how do you address if somebody is going through a challenge? How do you address that? Do you send them to jail, or what should be done? I know you don't condone the behavior, but do you send them to jail?
Personally, this is Asonglefac. Yeah, just before Dr. Kumba says that, this is a personal opinion. Personally, no. Do not send somebody to jail because of their way of life. Educate them, teach them to how to better live their lives without doing what you think is wrong with them. So I say no jail term for that. Do not criminalize them. Do not send them to jail. Dr. Kumba.
I will say that I don't want to quickly say don't send them to jail. I want to say that they need rehabilitation. And in line with what Dr. Ogoji was saying, if they must not contaminate, if I can use that word, permit the use of that word, the society or the community, they need to be kind of sequestrated. They need to be out of the community and rehabilitated. Now, if the prison can rehabilitate them, so be it. But the problem is our prisons do what they're not supposed to even do. Because that's the problem. Are they condemned to prison with hard labor because it's a crime, or they are condemned to some kind of confinement with rehabilitation? Because these are, I'm not a lawyer, I'm a medical doctor, but I think that some of these things are the ways to look at those kind of crimes. Crimes that we consider, I mean, how many times do I watch the news and, oh, this person was shot somebody and he was arrested and sent to this and that counseling because it is thought that he has so and so behavior. This is what we're talking about. It's a behavioral thing. So we must handle it like a behavior. Why do we handle gunmen for behavior? We cannot handle homosexuals for behavior. It's a question. So why is man choosing where to act and where not to act? Is the question. And so what I am saying and coming back to is that in his fallen nature, man has allowed certain aspects of the fallen nature to grow so deep, to have such deep roots in the human society that they are normalizing sin. And that's where the problem is. We will soon get to, if you take the case, I was talking about a gunman, if you take the case of gunmen in your society now, we will soon get to a point where shoot somebody on the street and the person does, and everybody looks and walks away. We will get there. So that murder becomes no longer a sin. That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
Well, the current president said that you could shoot somebody in New York City and get away with it during the election campaign, and he was elected. So, I mean, those are things that we should not allow to happen, that people should say and be punished for.
And like Reverend Pam said, I think Dr. Ogoji even said, one of us said something about parenting. If only parents will remember what the gift of a child is and stop chasing money and jobs and raise children, for God's sake, we may be getting somewhere. Because I don't know, the father is staying 3-4 hours flight from the family. The mother is at home. The child is another 2 or 3 hours flight in some school. Which family are we raising?
The internet is raising the children. Social media is raising the children.
Social media is raising our children for us, and that is part of this whole problem. So what we are saying is that homosexuality, in my take, is just one of those social ills that has to start from the nucleus of the church, which is the family, and start getting a solution and enter the enlarged church and the enlarged community. Because if we don't do it, then we are in for real trouble. As I say, if we are signing into law, same-sex marriages now, very soon we'll sign into law, keep your gun, shoot the man you see on the street if you don't like him and go away. What is it?
Florida has stand your ground, but I want to just mention something here. Even those parents that are even at home, this social media has created a lot of problems. It has its good attributes, but there are some mothers that are always on WhatsApp, fathers that are always on Facebook, and their children are in their house communicating with people, pedophiles, on the internet. They don't know. That's something we're going to be
on tablets.
Yes, and they get involved in all this, even including homosexuality activity, and under their roof, under their parents' nose, and they don't know about. That's one of social media is a part of an acronym that will call STEW that we usually do every year, and we're going to be visiting that soon again. But I'm just saying that it's not just about the parents. Even when your children are under your roof, know the sites that they visit. Know what kind of there are parents that buy expensive phones, for their children, phones that they themselves don't own, and they don't even know what their children are watching or who they are communicating with. It's a shame.
You see, so if you go back to the family as the nucleus of the church, as a Catholic Christian, I mean, with some amount of knowledge of Catholic theology, I want to say that in the setting of the Catholic Church, in the social teaching of the Catholic Church, the church is clear about how to handle issues within the family. One truth stands out. We are looking up to the truth. The truth is Jesus Christ. The family, can the family really say that we are truthful to ourselves? Like Reverend Pam is saying, are we doing our role? Are we playing our role? I mean, as a doctor, I'm sure Dr. Godi may say more about this from his experience. How many couples are walking into consultation because they don't have a child? Infertile couples. Then you have a child, you don't even know what's happening to that child. You don't even care whether the child is, whatever the child is doing is okay. You want to satisfy your child because the other thing is we have sent God out of the home. We're talking about right, child abuse. If I correct my child, it's child abuse. The child can call 911. What is all this perversion in the society, for God's sake? We are not helping ourselves and our children. We are just not. So if parents look back and remember that there is an ultimate truth and saving love called Jesus Christ and bring him into their homes, there may be some hope starting from that point. And then, as I keep saying, as we go into the larger church community and onto the society at large, we may be getting somewhere. Because if there were the fear of God in the heart of a person, he would not at any point contradict the same work of God. And the only way to put the fear of God in a person is from childhood. You don't put the fear of God into an adult. By the time the child is 5 years old, if the child cannot have enough fear of God, you are done. I mean,
all right. Yeah, Dr. Kumba, you just took it from me because I was going to go do the round of the tables, but you've apparently summarized in your own way, but we may come back to you. So let's take a round of the table and see how we draw a curtain on this program. Dr. Ferrin, please. What is your last take on the topic?
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting topic, and I still want to be on the side of trusting that God will help anyone that is going through a challenge like this, and for us to pay much more an attentive ear to them, and believe that God will help them to come out of it. I think I'm talking based on personal facts, dealing with people, seeing people who cry every day, filled with guilt, filled with shame, filled with condemnation, and they don't know the way out. And sometimes some of us as pastors, we come to them and say, oh, just say a prayer. And then we say that prayer and they go back and they are still struggling. But I also know that there are people who blatantly, they don't care about whether this lifestyle is right or wrong. I mean, they just want to do their thing, and that is their agenda. They want to just execute their agenda. So for the people that are seeking, those are the people that we are out to help. And we are praying that help will come to them in one form or another, whether it's counseling or it's prayers or it's talking together with them, or, just something supernatural happening to them to be able to live a normal life, build up a family, and please the Lord. That's our prayer for them.
Thank you very much. Dr. Ogoji.
Well, my take on this is choices are, God gave us a choice to choose the right or wrong, to love him or not to love him. And being a public servant, I have to be careful with my utterances, my behavior. My personal belief is that homosexual is not right, but I have to respect them. I have to treat them with dignity, but they should stop trying to indoctrinate the public. That program is called Drag Queen Story Time, DRAG, Drag Queen. Google about it. You go to popularly talk to children about gay and other sort of stories. On the other hand, what is good for, on the other hand, as we condemn, as they are trying to legalize or normalize gay and lesbianism, they should look at what happened to one American girl in Spokane. Her name is Nkemleke. She was a white lady who wanted to live like a black, and she was penalized. She lost her job because she claimed she's a black woman. If there is gender dysphoric disorder, this woman have a racial dysphoric disorder, yet she was penalized for trying to be a black woman. That's sad. So I always advocate for that woman. She shouldn't have lost her job. She shouldn't have lost her career because she wants to be a black woman, even though she's white. But that is the thing. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Ogoji, thank you very much. Dr. Kumba, across the Atlantic in Dakar, Senegal, please, your last word. We have just 30 seconds.
Well, I almost had my last word by saying that the parents should worry about how they raise their children, and there should be the fear of God instilled in children at an early age, because it will not take away only homosexuality, it will take away other sinful things, other sinful tendencies in youth as they grow and as they become adults. Crime rate is high, sins are many, because people are no longer raised in the fear of God.
Thank you so much, Reverend Pam.
No, I just want to thank all our guests, Dr. Ogoji, Dr. Kumba, Dr. Ferim, of course, Dr. Asonglefac Nkemleke. This faithful man who has been here the last 3 years nonstop. And please invite your friends next time, over to Nia Song. This was powerful, and we were streaming live on Facebook.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Kumba in Dakar, Senegal. There were two people in Dallas, Texas, that is Reverend Pam and Dr. Ferim, and Chief Dr. Ogoji. We always forget that chief title, from Spokane in the northwest of the United States of America, and Asonglefac Nkemleke virtually at the center in Maryland, United States of America. It's been a pleasure for Africa Online. Enjoy the rest of the week, and don't forget, we'll be discussing malaria for the rest of the week beginning tonight. Thank you all so much, and bye.
Bye.